Hello there, my name's Scott. Today I'm going to be doing a review on the Vision Eternity Repairable Atomiser, which I received from www.e-cigwizard.com. Before I start, I must point out I did receive it free of charge for the purpose of conducting a review. My opinion of the product remains true, honest and accurate as always. Okay, let's go straight ahead and show you what's in the tin. Okay, so the Vision Eternity is a repairable atomiser, and it can be used as either a dripping atty, or if you get yourself one of these, I think they're the Type A Ego T tank cartridges, and you can also use it, I suppose you call it an Ego T repairable atomiser as well. Now you do get all the parts to make it as a dripping atomiser plus a Ego T repairable atomiser, but you don't actually get the Ego T tank cartridge, so you will need to get yourself one of those separately. Comes in a really nice little sort of presentation tin, and if you open up the lid, inside you're going to find a little bag of spare parts, an instruction manual, and then the following items here. Okay, so the most important part in the tin is going to be the atomiser base section. This is what you're going to be using for attaching your wick and your coils, and also creating the vapour. Uses a 510 threading, so that means you can use it on any device that also has a 510 atomiser connection. And rather than having a sort of a screw post terminals for attaching your positive and your negative wires, instead you have these pull off, sort of push on little posts, and you're going to sort of use those for trapping your wire. Around the edge there you have this quite sort of deep well, and this is where you're going to be trapping your e-liquid if you're using it in the sort of direct dripping mode. And basically the wicks are going to be coming off the top of the post here, sitting inside that well, and obviously that's going to then soak up juice from inside there and feed it to the heating coil. Also in the kit you're going to find this section here, and this is used in both the dripping mode as well as the sort of Ego T mode. In the dripping mode, as you're dropping your e-liquid, it's going to fall through these little holes here, and this part is actually attached to the atomiser base, so it's going to fall straight through the holes and then onto the heating coil. Or if you're going to be using it in the Ego T mode, the tank's going to fit onto this spike. Obviously that spike has got a little bit of wick inside it, and that's going to soak e-liquid from the tank and then feed it down to the heating coil that way. If the little bit of wick there does ever get sort of all gunked up, you can pull it out and replace it as well. You're also going to find these two sort of, I suppose you call them atomiser cones, and one is going to be slightly shorter than the other one. Now the shorter one is for using the atomiser with the Ego T tank cartridge, and the slightly longer one is for using the atomiser as a dripping atomiser. And then finally you're going to get one of these Ego skirts. If you're going to use the atomiser with a regular sort of Ego battery, you can use the skirt to cover up the connection, make it look a bit neater. And you're also going to get yourself a nice looking drip tip. Right, so the Vision Eternity does actually come with a wick and coil already sort of pre-installed into the atomiser base. Literally all you need to do is just assemble the parts, add your e-liquid, attach it to your favourite device, and that's it. You can go off and have a nice vape. However, I'm just going to very quickly show you how to set up a brand new sort of wick and coil from scratch. Now in the spares bag you will find two pre-wound wick and wires, and obviously you can use those, but I just want to show you how to do it from scratch, so that way when they eventually run out you're going to know how to do it for yourself. So I've got myself here some 2mm silica wick and some 0.20 gauge Canthal wire, and all I'm going to do is just wrap some coils around the wick. I'm going to be aiming for around 5 coils. And hopefully should end up with something that looks like that. Right, so we now need to get the atomiser base sort of ready for accepting the new wick and wire. Now if you've already got a wire and a wick sort of set up in place and you're just going to be replacing it, then you will find that these little posts are quite tough to get off, so you will need to give it a bit of welly and a little bit of a twist, and they will eventually come off nicely. However, at the moment, obviously I've got nothing attached to them, so they both slide off very simply. Now, if you look at the instructions that come with the Vision Eternity, the diagrams are saying that you should attach both of these little sort of push-on posts at the same time, but I found that to be quite difficult. I prefer to get one side installed first and then worry about the other side. So I'm just going to do it the way that I do it, and that's the way that I find easier. So the first thing I'm going to do is just to take one end of the wire and just feed it through the little hole in the centre there, and slide it all the way up, and just slide it so the wick is sort of sitting in the top like that. Okay, so I've just moved the wire over to one side. Now all I'm going to do is very slide it onto one of the two terminals. Then just while holding everything in place, I'm just going to take the other end of the wire and slide it through the other little sort of post. Then all the way down, and once again just seat it so it's the wick's inside a little slot. Move the wire over a touch and just slide it onto the other post. And then just to make sure that both of the posts are nicely pushed down, just going to rest it against a tough surface and push down firmly. Then to remove any excess wire, just apply a bit of tension and give it a nice spin, and it should snap off nice and clean. And then for the next step, you can just take a pair of scissors and trim off the wick. And I just tend to hold the wick at the side like that and just trim it off near the bottom. And then spin it around and do the same thing. So it should be something like that. And then from there you can just take something like a little small screwdriver and just use it to push the wicks down inside the well there. So eventually you should have something that looks a bit like that. Then at this stage I'd just like to attach it to one of my devices and check out the resistance. So I've got it on my ProVary here, and the resistance is reading 1.4 ohms. That seems to be about right, and everything seems to be lining up correctly. Now before you go any further, I probably would advise that you sort of prime the wick a little bit with some e-liquid. So I'm just going to take some juice, drip a few drops down the well there, fill it up a little bit. And like I said, as those wicks are sitting in the juice now, that's going to start feeding juice up to the heating coil. But I'm also going to add a few drops directly to the coil as well, just to help it on its way. And we should get an idea of the vapour. And then all you need to do next is attach this section. Slide that over the top and screw that into place. And then basically you need to decide whether you're going to be using it as a dripping atomizer or as like an e-cig repairable atomizer. If you're going to be using it as a dripping atomizer, you just take this cone here, which is the longer one out of the two, screw that into place, and then attach your drip tip. Or if you want to be using it as the or with the e-cig tank cartridge, take this part, screw that on, and then take the tank cartridge and just slide that into the top. Okay, so that is the Vision Eternity Repairable Atomizer. Let's go ahead and see what it vapes like. Okay, so that was the Vision Eternity, and what I'll do now is go ahead and show in action. So I'm going to be using it on my ProVary, which I've currently set at 3.7 volts. The resistance of the coil is reading 1.4 ohms. I'm going to be using some 18mg strength tobacco flavoured e-liquid, and it's just a PG e-liquid. Now, like I said, the Vision Eternity can be used as either a dripping atomizer or in combination with one of those e-cig tank cartridges. And I will show you sort of both setups. You're not going to really see a massive amount of difference between the two, but hopefully it'll give you an idea of how sort of nice and simple you can switch between the two different modes. So I'll start off then in the direct dripping mode. Now the actual mouthpiece on it, or the drip tip, has got quite a wide sort of top there. So if you've got something like this, like with the needle on the end of the bottle, you can quite easily just put it in there. But just out of habit, I always tend to take the drip tip off and then direct drip. I can add about sort of 30 odd drops on this and not get any sort of leakage problems or gurgling or anything like that. But just because I want to obviously try and demonstrate both modes, I'm only going to add about sort of I'll add about 15 at the moment. Put it in the right way around, might help. So this is in the direct dripping mode. As you can see, like vapour-wise, you know, it produces a very nice amount of vapour. Although, yeah, we'll have to obviously bear in mind that the amount of vapour you're going to get will be quite dependent on what sort of resistance you've made the coil, what sort of voltage you've got it set to, what sort of e-liquid you're using, whether it's a PG-based e-liquid or a VG-based e-liquid. But nevertheless, still getting a very nice amount of vapour. With regards to flavour, it's not as good as, for example, like my sort of favourite Genesis style atomizers. And nevertheless, though, it is sort of pretty much on par with any other sort of silica wick based repairable atomizer. And you know, you are getting plenty of flavour there, but not quite as much as what you would do if you've got like a nicely sort of set up Genesis atomizer. But then they are my favourite sort of atomizers, so maybe I'm being just a little bit biased there. And like with regards to throat, again, that nice strong kick in the back of my throat. But again, that will be quite sort of dependent on your own sort of personal setup as well. The actual warmth of the vapour is quite a, more of a cool vape than a warm vape. And if I was going to say that one was really cold, 5 was like really hot, then it's definitely going to be around sort of 1.5 to 2. I do find it to be quite a cool vape. Again, your own sort of personal setup will you know, come into play there. If you've got like a really low resistance coil on it, and higher voltages, obviously it's going to be running hotter and that produce a hotter vape. However, I do find though that anything sort of below 1.3 ohms, you know, does tend to, it takes a while for the juice to actually sort of feed up properly to the wick, so you do have to sort of leave it a little while in between each inhale for it to obviously wick properly and keep up with the atomizer. But you know, with like 1.4 ohms, 1.5 ohms, you know, you can set it around sort of 3.8 volts and have a really nice vape out of it. The draw is it's pretty much bang in the middle really. It's not a loose draw, but it's definitely not a tight draw either. So if I was going to say that 1 was really loose, 5 was really tight, it's, you know, it's bang in the middle, it's sort of about sort of 2.5. Build quality wise, you know, considering it is a pretty cheap sort of repairable atomizer, the actual build quality is very good. You know, everything sort of screws together very nicely, and no little rough edges. It really does look like a nice atomizer as well. The only thing that sort of lets it down a little bit is obviously I don't think it's stainless steel. It's obviously some sort of metal which has then been chrome plated. And I couldn't find out what the actual material used in it was, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be stainless steel, because otherwise why would you sort of chrome plate it when you can quite easily just polish it? You know, so That's really the only sort of slight negative, but it's not so much to do with the build quality, because actual build quality does seem to be very nicely done. But for me personally, if I had a choice of paying another £10 more to have a stainless steel version, that would definitely be my sort of my choice out of stainless steel and like a chrome plated material, whatever that sort of metal material is. I'm going to switch over then to the Ego tank mode. I just start to feel that the flavours start to wane a little bit, and so obviously that's normally your indication to start adding a few more drops of juice. All I've done is taken off the that sort of cone section, replace it with the other one, and then just got to take your Ego T tank, the same juice in there as well, and pop that into the top. And that's it. So you can sort of quite easily switch between the two modes. Just going to give that a second just to run down to the coil. Hope it's on its way, and it should be fine now. That's it. With ease of setup, now this is, I find, is quite a difficult one to judge really, because for me personally, I did find it quite easy. You know, just slide those little bits of wire through the holes, push it down on the post, and that's sort of pretty much it really. However, I can see it being an absolute nightmare for some people. If you've got, you know, sort of quite bad eyesight, or if you're not very sort of dexterous with your hands, I can imagine it being, you know, really super fiddly for you. If you have got, you know, sort of pretty good eyesight and you're normally quite good with your hands, and I'm gonna be pretty confident in saying you're going to find it very easy to set up. So I think it will be quite dependent on your own sort of abilities really. However, based on how I've been using it, I did find it to be, you know, very easy. So if I was going to say that like 1 was like really hard, 5 was really easy, it's definitely going to be sort of probably around sort of 4, something like that. Like I said, when I've done the close-up shots, you'll see that I put on the one post first and then the other post. In the instructions, it does say to put on the 2 little posts all the way up onto the coil there, or around the coil, and then slide them both onto the 2 little sort of terminals that stick up. Now, when I first got it and I tried that, I found that to be you know, quite difficult really, and I was having a few problems. But when I just thought, I'll sort that, I'm just going to do one at a time, and then that was it. You know, it just seems to be so much easier. So if you do find it a little bit difficult, hopefully that method will make it a little bit easier for you. You know, in summary, it is a very nice little atomiser, especially when you consider the, you know, it's a pretty low price point. I think it's about £22, something like that. You know, it is a shame that it's not stainless steel. And like I said, I would quite happily sort of pay another £10 and get the same atomiser, but obviously just made out of stainless steel. For people who, you know, never had a repairable atomiser before, you know, sort of toying with the idea of it, but sort of quite put off by the relatively high prices, then you know, it definitely is a very good one to go for, just to sort of practice and see whether rebuildables are your cup of tea. Not a great deal else I can really sort of tell you about it. You know, if you fancy trying it out for yourself, go along to www.e-cigwizard.com. Thank you very much for watching. Also come along and visit my website at www.e-cigreviews.com. It's e-cig-reviews.com. Cheers guys, happy vaping, see you later.